So, good day everyone. I'm Paulo Santanes from BSC 3E. So, for continuation of the discussion of CIAP Document 102, let's proceed to Article 23 under Section 7, separate contracts with other contractors. So, on Article 23 provides the right of both the owner and contractor in certain situation. So the owner has the right to do work outside the contractor's scope of work or may also award separate contracts to other contractors. So aside from the one he already contracted with. So however, in that scenario, the contractor has a right to make a claims against the owner when such as act of the owner causes a delay, damage, or additional cost to the contracts to such that is provided in their contract. Sa article na to, covers din niya yung other contractor should have a coordination with the contractor with regard to their work. So, next in Article 24, which is nasa slide 33, contractor separate contractors relations. So, first part of its Article 24.1 is that talks about the storage of material and work coordination. So, this provide a reasonable opportunity for others contractors to have knowledge of the materials and its storage, then as well as the execution of their work. So, sinasabi dito na the contractor has the obligation to give this opportunity to other contractors to extent possible. So, separate contractor and contractor itself should have a coordination with their work to minimize interference or obstruction while doing each their work. So next slide 34, which contain Article 24.02, which is cutting, patching, and digging emphasize one of the obligation of a contractor. Or he or she should be one doing the required cut, fitting, and patching up work to make it came together or so that it may be received by work of others contractors shown upon or the one implied by drawings and specification of the completed structure. So however, it should be reminded that the contractors has no right o walang karapatan na to cut or alter the work of any other contractors or endanger any work by cutting or digging without the consent of the owner. So next slide. So Article 24.03 is defective work by separate contractors. So the article covers the situation wherein the partial performance of the contract depends on the other contractor. If that is situation, the contractor should respect the work of other contractor to see if it's properly executed. So, if the contractor will fail to inspect the other contractor's work, the latter will deem as fits and proper of his work defect, except when the defects develop after the execution of contractor's work. To avoid the improper execution from the other contractor, the contractor must verify all work that is already in place to the owner at once for any discrepancy between the executed work and drawings that he will notice. So next article 24.0 refers to damage caused by contractor to separate contractors that states if the contractor caused damage to the work of the separate contractor, then he will be one that liable for any liabilities that may arise from that damage and not the owner. So now if the separate contractor is the one that caused a damage to the contractor's work, the owner should harmless the contractor in respect TRF. So next, Article 25 subcontracts. So for Article 2501 general, this provides an understanding that no portion of the work will be subcontracted without the consent of the owner. So now, if the owner give his consent, it should be noted that the engagement of the contractor to the subcontractor will not create a contractual relation between the subcontractor and the owner. So, it would be between the contractor and the tatawag natin na subcontractor. Article next is Article 25.02 is a provision for the responsibility of the contractor when he contracted with a subcontractor. So this article specified that the contractor will be the one responsible for any acts and omission of his subcontractor and the person employed by them either directly or indirectly, just like he is liable for the acts and omission of a person directly employed by him. For slide 139 to 142, so pinagsama-sama ko na sila kasi magkakasama lang naman. Magkakaiwalay lang sila ng slide. So, let's proceed. So, for Article 26, Article 26 is the contractor's right to suspend work for or terminate or a contract. So, it should be remembered that the contractor cannot be suspend work or terminate a contract in a drop of a hat. It would take up to 15 days after the notice of the owner. So, what are the reason why a contractor will suspend work or terminate a contract? So, there are several reasons such as if an order or any court of or other public authority cause the work to be stopped or suspended for an aggregate period of 90 days through no act or faults of the contractor of his employees. So, if the owner shall fail to pay to the contractor any I mean, so if the owner shall fail to pay the contractor the approved request of payment as provided in Article 22.05, if the owner shall fail to pay the contractor without just case for more than the ay uh, mali so sinasabi dito na if the contractor shall fail to pay the contractor any sum with 30 days. So within 30 days pala kailangan hindi ma-delay yung bayad. So if the owner suspends the work without just cause for more than the aggregate period of 15 days without the constructor's consent, if the owner fails to deliver at the construction site owner supplied or furnished construction so materials and equipment for the scope of work along the critical path beyond 15 days after its scheduled date for deliver as provided for in the contract of or if the approval of variation orders for additional works along the critical path is delayed beyond 15 days after submission for approval by the owners of his duly designated representative. So, if the suspension is necessary for the proper execution of the work or by reason of weather or other condition affecting the safety of the works on or the contractor's worker, the contractor may request the owner to suspend work. So, in accordance with the applicable provision of Article 27.02. So also the contractor shall be entitled to an equitable adjustment of completion time and or contractor price for suspension of work due to the above circumstances. Excuse. So slide 143. Now let's proceed to the owner's right to suspend the work under Article 27. So slide 144. 27.01 Suspension without cause, I mean. This article specifies that the owner can suspend the work or part of it anytime without any cause for a period of not more than the aggregate period of 15 days by notice in writing to the contractor. So if the owner will do such thing, he or she should fix a date on which work will be resumed. Now, on the part of the contractor, he or she will be allowed for an adjustment in the contract price to include demobilization and remobilization, rather, cost and or standby time as applicable, as well as adjustment of completion time, which shall not be less than the period of suspension and shall include the delay due to remobilization of equipment and personnel. So, with regard to this article, it should be noted that the owner may not suspend the work without just cause for more than period of 15 days. So, without the contract, so without, yun yung walang contracts consent. So, next, how about under article under Article 27.02, the following cases may the reason for the work to stop or any portion the reorg upon the written order of the owner. So first, unsuitable weather or other condition considered unfavorable for the prosecution of work. So second is failure of the contractor to correct condition which constitute a danger or to his workers of the general public or to correct defective work. Next, third, failure of the contractor to carry out valid orders issued by others or to comply with any provision of the contract or his persistent failure to carry out the works in accordance with the contract. So, fourth, the necessity for adjusting the drawings to suit site condition found during construction or in case of change in drawings and specification. So, failure of the contractor to supply sufficient skilled workmen or suitable materials or equipment. 6. Failure of the owner to supplied or furnish materials on times, where such failure is due to causes beyond the reasonable control of the owner. 7. The delay by the owner is obtaining a right way of where such obligation is assumed by the owner under contract. So, and the delay is not due to the fault, negligence by the owner. 8 is force major or choose event. Yun lang yung sa pang 8 niya. And now, 9, peace and order problems. And lastly, any condition to the beyond the control of the owner. Now, once the written order from the owner has been communicated, the contractors must be immediately comply in manner that the owner may direct. So, and just like earlier, so the contractor shall be entitled to an equitable adjustment for completion time and contract price for suspension of work due to items 1 for 6, 7, 9, 10, and 11. But for item 1, no such adjustment shall be allowed if unsuitable weather conditions were taken into actual of days Unsuitable weather exceeds the period taken into account in the bid document. So the contractor shall be entitled to adjustment of completion time and contract price. So let's proceed to slide 146. Termination with cause under Article 28.01. So it states that if the owner may immediately terminate a contract with the contractor without prior notice to the latter when the contractor is adjudged, bankrupt, or insolvent. Meaning the contractor has no means to fulfill his responsibility. So when the contractor makes a general assignment of his assets of the benefits of his creditors, meaning all the contractor's assets are already disseminated to his personal creditors. When a trustee or receiver is appointed for the contractor or for any of the contractor's property or when the contractor files a petition for suspension of payment or to recognize under or to reorganize under the bank bankruptcy or similar law. So next for slide 147 and 148, aside from the cost stated in Article 28.01, there are also the grounds for termination with cause under Article 28.02. Those other grounds are the occurrence of events such as the repeated failure of the contractor to supply the sufficient number of skilled workmen or suitable materials or equipment based on the construction schedule. So the contractor repeatedly fails to make without just cause from payment to subcontractors for labor, materials, or equipment without just cause, and when completion of the work is being delayed. So when the contractor disregards the law or orders of any public body having jurisdiction or when the contractor otherwise violates in any substantial way any provision of the contract or when there is a slippage of the contractors is excess 25% in the prosecution of work per agreed construction schedule. So per or PERT or CPM plus any adjustment granted to the contractor. So after the owner gave his 15 days written notice to the contractor and his surety, the owner can now terminate their service. So excluded the contractor from the site and take possession of work and all of the construction tools, appliances, construction equipment, and machinery at the site use the same and incorporate into the work or all materials and equipment stored at the site including those stored elsewhere for which the owner has paid the contractor and finish the work as owner may deem expedient. So in that case, the contractor is not entitled to receive any further payment until the work is finished. So slide 149. So let's proceed to termination with cause under Article 20.28.03. So this provide the owner the right to abandon the work, terminated the contract without prejudice to any other right or remedy upon 15 days written notice to the contractor. So for that case, the contractor will be paid for all the work executed and any expenses incurred plus reasonable termination costs. So, yun lang yung sa slide 149. Next, Article 29, sets out the owner right to proceed with the work after reduction in contract scope of work, partial takeover from contractor. So, its first clause is the 29.01. for owner's right to carry out the work. So, in situation wherein the contractor repeatedly fails to supply sufficient skilled workmen or suitable materials or equipment, repeatedly fails to make prompt payment to subcontractors for labor, materials, or equipment, fails within a mutually agreed time after written notice of the owner to carry out remedial or repair work. So fails despite repeated remedial work to rectify the defects or the results of remedial work does not conform to the specification or fails to perform the work in accordance with the contract. So the owner may good to such deficiencies without terminating the contract after 7 days following the receipt of written notice by the contractor. So, kapag nangyari to, an appropriate change order must be issued to deduct the correcting of this deficiency from the payment due to the contractor, including the payment of additional service made necessary by such default, neglect, or failure. So, not if the payment due to contractor are not sufficient enough to cover such amount, the contractor must pay the difference to the owner. So, slide 151, which is Article 29.02, covers the use of materials and equipment at site. So, upon receiving the termination of the contract, the contractor must vacate the site and deliver possession of work or the parts specified in the notice to the owner. So, for all the materials, plant appliances, and other essential equipment needed for the construction of the project, the owner has the option to let those remain on the site until the work is completed and credit the contractor a reasonable rental for the use of the same. So, if such materials or equipment do not belong to the contractor, the owner has the option to retain them for use in a project and pay reasonable rent directly to the lessons for their use. So, chargeable against the contractor provided that it does not violate the lease contract of the contractor. So, for slide 152, Article 29.03, owner to complete work is specified that the owner may take over to the work and use the tools, appliances, and materials that may be found at the site for the purpose of completing the work. So, yun lang yung under 29.03. So, for slide 143, for evaluation of cost work under Article 29.04. So, the owner will establish and fix the value of the completed work does not paid by the owner and all the usable materials of the contractor taken over by the owner upon the termination of the contract. So, if the cost of the completing the work to the owner, including the reasonable administrative and managerial service and charge against the project prior to the termination of the contract, are not in excess of the contract price, the difference them may be applied to settle claims filed against the contractor, and if there's any balance, it will be paid to the contractor. So, no amount in excess of the combined value of the unpaid completed work, retained percentage, and usable materials taken over by the owner at the time of the termination of the contract shall be paid to the contractor until the completion of the work. So, in case of suspension of work, the owner will be charged of all unpaid work executed, including the costs incurred during suspension. So, for slide 154, Article 29.05 provides the owner's right to recover damage. So, taking over of the owner completion of work by administration or the allowing of the same to another contractor does not constructed as waiver if the owner's right to recover damage against the original constructor or on or his sureties for the failure to complete the work as stipulated. So for that case, the full extent of the damage for which the contractor on or his sureties are liable shall include the accrued liquidated damage, including the day immediately before the date the date that the owner effectively takes over the work of or the date of substantial completion, which ever occurs earlier, and the excess costs incurred by the owner in the completion of the work over the contract price inclusive of allowing the same. So if the owner completes the work by administration, the direct cost of completing the work must include the reasonable cost of managerial administrative service incurred from the time the owner effectively took over the work of administration. So for the last part of Article 29 is the liquidated damage stated earlier in the Article 29.05. The contractor will pay the owner liquidated damage in the amount stipulated in the contract when the contractor refuses or fails to satisfactorily complete the work within the specified contract time, including any time adjustment duly granted. So it should be noted that the liquidated damage shall occur from the first day of delay in the completing work until the date of substantial as determined under Article 20.11. So, to be entitled to such liquidated damage, no proof is needed to be presented by the owner that he actually incurred actual damage, so that the amount will be deducted from any amount due or may become due to the contractor under contract. So the owner may collect such liquidated damage from the retention money or the securities posted by the contractor, whichever is convenient to the owner. So in no case, however, shall the sum of liquidated damage exceed 10% of the total contract price. So, excuse. So the liquidated damage for delay shall be reduced in the proportion which the value of the part or the section of so certified bears to the value of the whole of the work if before the completion of the whole of the work. So any part or section of the work has been certified by the owner's engineer or representative as completed and occupied or used by the owner unless a contrary provision is stipulated in the contract.